Thank you, Father, for the day. Thank you, incredible audience, for being here. And thank you, Dolly. I cannot wait to share a little, for you to share a little of your story and what you do with the audience. This is enormously important education. And I'm just so grateful that you're here. Uh, the audience, of course, and the mission is to educate through stories, to connect through stories, to throw lifelines through stories. We all have these incredible stories, and one conversation at a time can make an enormous global impact. So thank you, Dolly, for being here. Audience, oh my goodness, the lovely Dali Rivera from Dali Talks is here with us today. Welcome, Dali.
Thank you so much for having me. I love that introduction. So warm and loving. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. I'm going to read a tiny bit about you just to make sure I get it right. And, Dali Rivera, she is a U.S. Army veteran. Let's just stop there. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And I know everyone here says thank you. She's a speaker, author, podcaster. We have so much in common. And she works with organizations. Listen to this, y'all, to provide adults who advocate for kids with bullying prevention education. She's designed a signature program, and the program is called Diversity and Anti-Bullying Academy. Well, that's the academy. The program is the same. Dolly, bullying is terrible.
It is. Mhm.
And I know the audience shares this sense of deep gratitude for you and for the education around bullying. How did you get here? What in the world part of your story led you in this direction?
There are multiple experiences I had, but I was born in Nicaragua in Central America. I came to the US at the age of 7 and experienced bullying pretty much immediately. So my whole life I thought, well, that just happened to me because I was that different kid. I didn't know English. I didn't know anything about colloquial language and trends and, US American culture. And it was tough. I didn't know a lot of the history of US relations with other countries and racism and all sorts of things. And I just kept experiencing certain things throughout my life and into the military. And in the military, I think I was fed up and I just had this huge sense of justice. So I became an advocate for my soldiers, and then I became a mom, and somebody messed with my baby when she was starting elementary school. And that's when I was like, oh, no, this is not going to happen to my child. She's like really bright. She was just like, came out the womb of a
Mm,
warrior. She's so confident and outspoken. And when I saw her little light being dimmed, I was like, no. And
mm,
so through advocating for her, I felt like I was failing her as a mom because it was not working. And luckily, I was in my master's program then. So I was already in research mode, study mode. And my education, my academic studies was in women and gender studies with a concentration in leadership and social policy. And
wow.
one of the things the principal used to always say is, oh, we have to follow policy. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm studying policies and how to break it down and see if it's working or not working for who it's intended for. So let me go look at this and read it. And that's really where I was like blown away with the lack of information that parents have and why it is that we don't get the solutions that we need for our children to be kept safe. So that's what spearheaded it. And here I am years later. I would have never thought I would be doing this work.
Well, first of all, I'm so sorry that you experienced hurt that affected you so deeply. And at the same time, I'm always reminded that sometimes, most oftentimes, the darkest moments in our lives and how we handle, how we get through those times provides this incredible platform and storytelling to share with others. So thank you for doing this.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
I want to back up to the military. First of all, how old were you? Why did you join the military? Where'd you go? Share with
Yeah.
us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was so unexpected. I lived in a very unfavorable conditions at home, and I didn't know it then, but I was going through the bullying and then stuff at home, and then I hit depression, didn't know it then. And I fell behind on my grades, and I just started thinking I was not gonna do anything in life. I was like, I was really scared. So one of the things that I had many and still have many passions. I wanted to be a pilot, an architect, a astronaut, a scientist, an author. I mean, everything. And that was hard on its own because there's this pressure as a kid where people ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? And you're like, I don't know. I wanted to be a cop. And so there was this job training program for kids. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And then, ooh, they have law enforcement. I want to be a cop. So I went to it, did excellent, was very proud that I was like really good at like the physical training and learning all the penal codes and everything. And this man walked in a beautiful uniform with a sword and stripes and stuff. He called himself a Marine. And I was like,
Uh,
oh. And so I was like, wait a minute, the military. And that's when the idea got in my head, and I was like, you know what? I really like this. And I was like, and I can be a cop in the military? And they were like, yeah, yeah, you certainly can. So I ended up just with the idea, and I was working at the library one day, and this fine looking man in a uniform walked into the library, and I whispered over to my friend, I was like, oh my God, I wonder what it's like to be in the army. And it was like bionic ears. He heard me. He made this smooth U-turn straight to me. He was like, hey, I heard you want to be in the military. Start me a
Slick
date. I
talking,
will never
handsome
forget it.
fella.
And then next thing you know, I'm convincing my mom to let me go. And I'm like, I promise I'll go to college. I'll get the GI Bill. And that's how I entered the military because I honestly was running away from looking like a failure because I really didn't think I could go to college. The oldest of six, my father had just left, which was a good thing. And so I was like, I can't be a burden to my mom, so I'm going to go do this thing in the military. And by the way, I'm going to choose something really cool that girls usually don't do. I want to go play around with tanks and big vehicles, so I'm going to become a mechanic. And so I not only go into a very male-dominated field or, institution, but I chose a very male-dominated field where I could have gone into, I don't know, some admin type of thing or
Sure.
medical. And that's how I ended up in the military, convinced my mom that I was gonna make her proud, get my education, and it was gonna be only 3 years, but it turned out to be 10.
Wow.
10 amazing years. I think at the time I couldn't have done anything better. Like that was so incredible. It was really hard emotionally and mentally more than physically. And but that's where I learned to use my voice because I was challenged at every single turn. I was challenged for being young. I was challenged for being Latina. I was challenged for being a woman. I was challenged with like the level of education that I had, which pushed me further into getting more education. And it challenged some of my beliefs, some of my upbringing. It was just eye-opening. It was honestly the best thing I could have done. It had its negative sides, plenty of them, but I like to always try to take the positive from anything and just go with that. So I'm not like absorbed in the negativity and so that life can still look worth living, because when you allow yourself to just hold on to the negative stuff, life will be miserable.
Oh my God. I want to say this again because anyone in the audience and anyone that ever hears this from the armed forces, thank you.
You're very
You know,
welcome.
I mean, thank you so very much. My kind of an aside, my husband and I just returned from a beautiful wedding in New Orleans, which is where the World War II Museum is. And it's spectacular. And so often I think that we're feeling this disconnect and we're not united as we should be as a country. I'll start with that. And this is a global, podcast, but here every day we are praying for one nation indivisible, you know, uh, under God. Every single day we pray that. I think we have become so far removed from what the lives, the cost that have been sacrificed in order to be in this position, to even have time to have a conversation about not being connected. It just breaks my heart. Anyway, thank you. And thank you to all those that are listening. Where did you go? Where were you stationed?
Oh, okay. So
So,
I was told, yeah, I did basic training or boot camp. Army calls it basic training in South Carolina. That was my first introduction to real humidity. I almost died. Like I wanted to die. I grew up in California. So I was like,
oh
what
yeah,
is this? Yeah.
oh yeah.
I remember like getting off the plane in South Carolina and I was like, oh, there's something wrong with their air here in the
Oh,
airport. And then I went to the buses that were waiting for us. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this like their air? Like I can't breathe.
oh gosh.
And it was just like I broke out in the most awful like acne or something throughout my entire body. Like it was horrible.
I'm so
Ruck marching.
sorry.
Yeah, it was like ruck marching with 12 pounds on your back and or was it no, it was 24 25. I can't even remember. It was a lot, but it was 12 miles up up a mountain. And it was just horrible and I broke out. And there's all like this chemical that they put in the uniforms and I think that that had a reaction with the humidity in my skin. But anyway, so basic training was in South Carolina. AIT, Advanced Individual Training, where you go and do, learn about your job, was in Aberdeen, at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. And then from there, I was sent to my first duty station in South Korea, at Camp Casey, which is really close to the DMZ line to North Korea. So that
Okay.
was really rough because we were so close. Um, and everybody, when they were like, we were at AIT and they were like, you're waiting for your orders to see your first duty station. Hopefully you get Germany, not Korea. And so my buddies and I were like, oh, okay, Korea sounds rough. Man, let me tell you, it was rough, but I'm so glad that I went there first because I'm the type of person that likes to do the hard work first to get it out of the way. And I
Mhm.
was like, if I can get through this first year at this duty station, I mean, we were like in horrible conditions. The building we were in was condemned. All of my toenails fell off whole because there was like plumbing issues in the showers. It was just rough. And people don't know that service members experience this.
Right.
But we have like, yeah. And then from there, I went to Fort Irwin, California, where they have the National Training Center that everybody dreads because it's hot. That's where everybody in the military goes to train for war before deploying. So as a mechanic, I had no life because there's different cycles, 30 to 45 day cycles of different units all over the world sometimes coming in. And it was just hard work and 120-degree weather. Sometimes you had to wear gloves to just touch the tools because it was so hot.
Oh,
And it was nonstop. And then from there, Fort Hood, Texas. Uh, that was crazy. And 9/11 happened when I was there. I had to help the 1st Cavalry Division and the 1st Infantry Division at Fort Riley, Kansas, prep their vehicles to send them out to Iraq for the war. And then I was surprised by the Department of Defense. They were like, "Hey, you're gonna be a drill sergeant," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Me, little me, I'm 5'2" and three
Are you
quarters me."
sure? Wow,
Yeah,
but what a
an honor.
horrifying
Yeah.
compliment.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a hard job because you're up all the time. You don't have a life. It's although in the military, the in the drill sergeant, you know, life or space, there's a competition between like basic training drill sergeants versus AIT. AIT is supposed to be easier, and it is because it's not, I think it's not as demanding with the hours. We do get a few, maybe 2, 3 more hours to ourselves a day, but it's still like wake up at 3:30 in the morning, get home by 12 if you're lucky. Sometimes we just slept at the barracks because, like there's always stuff going on because you're still training them to get out there to wherever they're going, their first duty stations. And at that time, because 9/11 had kicked off, this was 2005, 2006. Um, every soldier that came through, I knew they were going to deploy for sure. For they were going mainly to Iraq, but some were going to Afghanistan. So I took that very, very seriously because, whatever they had learned in basic training, I had to continue to reinforce that because their lives were going to depend on it. And also their jobs, because as a mechanic, if you don't know how to help go recover a tank or a truck or a Humvee or whatever equipment, your life is on the line as well as everybody else's. So you better know your crap like really, really well and be very efficient. So it was a heck of an experience. I'm so grateful. And now that I look back, I think of like the craziness that the military, that the Department of Defense puts so much trust on young people. I was 24 doing all of this. Like at my, I got out when I was 28. Um, but from 18 to 28, um, and the type of responsibilities, like I was a shop manager. Like I led people, like people that were older than me sometimes, which was really awkward. And there was a lot of tension sometimes, but and I look at that, and I this is something that I tell my kids. They're 18 and 19 now, and they've worked in fast food industry, and sometimes they're like, "Oh, why should I apply to that one job?" Because I'm trying to push them to do other things. And they say like, well, I've only worked in the fat foods. I cannot speak.
Fast food industry.
Fast food industry. And I'm like, "But that's not a
Sorry.
lot of experience." I'm like, that actually is. If you look at the military and if you look at the fast food industry, who is running it? Who is doing the work? Young people.
Yeah.
Very, very young people. They are bringing in billions and billions and billions of dollars because they're trusting you. And you might think that your part is really small and insignificant, but my goodness, it is absolutely not. It's so much bigger than you are.
What a wonderful mom you are. Let's start with that.
Thank you.
And what a wonderful example. And again, I can't say thank you enough um, for what you've done for your service. And now we want to celebrate you and thank you for bringing these challenges and the truth about bullying to the forefront of our attention.
Yeah.
And I want the audience to know before, pre-show, Dolly and I visited a little bit. And ultimately, as you listen to this, first of all, tell everybody you know that's ever been in the military, thank you. Let's just start there. And then the next thing is we want to follow Dolly and we want to be put your thinking caps on and be thinking of people, whether they be educators, different communities, individuals, parents that have said their family members or someone they know has experienced something about bullying. We'll bring that back up at the end, but be thinking, you know, open minded of who needs this information. This is about connection. This is about helping others feel loved, feel included, know
Yeah.
that they are important. Everything we do is to remind people or tell them for the first time they are children of God, they matter, their stories matter, and they are loved. And Dolly talking about this bullying, I mean, it's one of those that this really drives that home, this mission that we're really behind. So tell us about bullying. Give us
Yeah.
an example, maybe begin with an example of bullying that, as a whole, most people don't understand that it's a form of bullying.
Yeah, thank you for that question because I think that that is one of the main problems why people don't do anything about it and people who experience it don't report it. It's because it looks suspicious. You're not really sure when it's happening to you sometimes unless it's so obvious like a punch in the face, right?
Right,
Like something
right.
that
That's
should
kind of easy.
right,
We know
right.
that's not good. Right.
And so there's four of many, but because you have financial bullying, emotional you. So you have social bullying, which is really when you're attacking somebody's character in some way, even sabotaging relationships. So Carol, if you and I are hanging out, and then I don't know, for some reason I decide that I don't like you anymore, and we end up in your circle of friends, and I start telling all of your friends that Carol did something she actually did not do, or is somebody who she's really not. Maybe I'm doing it through little jokes, or maybe sarcasm, backhanded compliments, then it might not seem very harmful. It might just seem like, oh, that's just Dali. She's rough around the edges. Let it go. That's just her. She doesn't mean it. But after time, people start wondering, like, I wonder if there's some truth in what she's saying about Carol. And then Carol will start thinking, like, I wonder if that's true, is that's what she sees in me. And then you start to doubt yourself. And
Mm,
then let's say you tell me like, hey, Dali, I really don't like the way that you've been talking about me. And I'm like, oh, it's just jokes. Let it go. You're just being too soft. So the moment that you told me to please stop, and I continued, now I'm bullying you because you've told me I don't like it. Bullying is aggressive, unwanted behaviors that usually are repeated, although it doesn't have to be, and it has the potential of being repeated. And there's usually a an imbalance of power or authority. So, for example, if I am your school principal's daughter, will you feel confident enough to go talk to the principal about me bullying you?
mm,
What would you expect? That principal is going to be like, not my kid. I'm the school principal.
right.
Or if you are bullying me, you're a little older than I am, and I'm
That was a nice thing to say.
a little older and you look fabulous.
110. Thank you.
Mhm. I mean, as a little assuming we're younger, but you're like
Yes.
I'm 7 and you're like 10, although it's only a 3-year
Yes.
difference. I'm gonna feel like, well, that's an older girl. They're not, she might beat me up. She's bigger than me.
That's
You know,
right.
she's older than me. So there's these power imbalances. So the definition of bullying is unwanted aggressive behavior that is repetitive or has the potential of being repetitive, and a power imbalance exists. And it can be from anybody. And I don't like that normally when you hear the word bullying, they associate to school bullying, because bullying happens at every age, every field, every social class, every economic status, every region of the world. And when it is done by adult, it's usually called harassment. If you look at the definition of harassment and bullying, they're extremely similar, just a few variations of the words. So you have social bullying, which I explained about me sabotaging your relationships, tarnishing your reputation. You have physical bullying, which includes blocking you down the hallway so you don't get to class on time, or pulling on your hair, flipping your cap off of your head, hiding your glasses from me. All of that is physical bullying. I don't necessarily have to touch your body. I could walk up next to you while you're at the lunchroom and grab your lunch and run away with it and toss it in, somewhere. And then you have verbal bullying, which includes the condescending tone, the sarcasm, the backhanded compliments, the direct insults of you're a B word or you're dumb or, stuff like that. It could also be like talking down to you and saying, "Oh, who do you think you are? Because you're not wearing the latest whatever purse or whatever kids care about." So verbal, you're talking down to. And then you
Ah,
have, yeah, so we have verbal, physical, emotional. When it's verbal and emotional, I sometimes lump together. Um, so you're messing with people's psyche and you're making them feel less than. And you have cyberbullying. Cyberbullying, you do all of what you normally do, or like what I've explained, except the physical. I mean, physical can still be done through cyberbullying because if you are telling others to like go to your house and egg your house, that's a
yeah.
physical attack, right? It's not your body, but it's your property. So it can still be done through cyberbullying, online. Um, and it's just a very, very it's very hard to make others stop. I'm not here to tell people I'm going to save the world by stopping bullying. That's impossible. Nobody can do that. But I can educate people to prevent themselves from becoming a target. Because, in my opinion, one of the many ways that you prevent yourself from becoming a target is by building up your confidence and also
Yeah.
learning about other people. Because even the bully has to be understood, even the bully needs help. And I think when we talk about bullying behaviors, we think about the victims and not the bully. So, how can we exclude the bully and expect a change or for it to stop if the bully gets no help?
Okay. Back up for just a minute. Number one, we have to come back to this bully that needs the help. I want to say that every family needs this education.
Yeah, I agree.
Backhanded compliments,
Oh, all the time in the families.
verbal, you know, big brother, little brother, big sister, little sister, however it all goes.
Hmm.
You know, I, my family will tell you this because I didn't call it bullying, but it certainly was mean. When
Hmm.
people make a joke, they're kidding, and they bring up something that's hurtful, but
Right.
they make it sound like, oh, we're just no big deal. That is bullying,
Mhm.
and it's repeated often.
Often, yes.
And
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 it can be,
I
yeah.
think that imagine if families were educated and the kiddos, the siblings were all educated, they would recognize that, so much of all that needs to take place on this planet through healing begins with awareness.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Hmm.
how can you be aware of something other than recognizing it's something that doesn't feel good? But
Hmm.
to educate within the families when people are making jokes. Listen, I'm from the most imperfectly perfect family as far as I'm concerned. And they would all tell me, make sure you stress the imperfect. There was a lot of, I'm going to say, because I believe they'll agree, a lot of bullying that went on
Hmm.
under, oh, just kidding. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely, positively, and in our household here, nobody kidding and jokes are not allowed if they are not nice.
Hmm.
You know, there's not a lot of things. Well, I don't know if that's true, but it's one of the things that really it upsets me.
Hmm.
And so, but I hadn't thought about until this conversation, and we've talked about this often, the bullying within households. Other
Yeah.
than oftentimes I've said, my God, I can't imagine the parents, the parenting that's going on that turns that these kiddos become bullies. You know,
Hmm.
and I
Yeah.
don't want to lay blame any place, but at some place there has to be a break
Hmm.
in the behavior.
Yeah. And to your point, sometimes the verbal bullying, especially in families, start off as intended terms of endearment. For example,
Yeah.
yeah, for example, in Latin culture, we have this horrible habit of calling people by either their flaw or something funny that happened to them.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so it's like it starts off to make light of a situation. So this is where a lot of children get very confused with teasing versus bullying. Because when you're teasing somebody, it's to make light of something that happened to you to remind you, hey, don't do that again. So it has a good purpose. It's not to shame you, to humiliate you, or give you a negative feeling. It starts off like that, but sometimes, like I said, once somebody says, hey, I don't like that, that's pulling on my insecurity, so could you please not, but then they do it in families, like in some of my family connections. Sometimes I'll give you an example. One of my sisters, I didn't know this until many years later, we called her gordita, which is the equivalent of saying like fatty or fluffy or like bigger, because she was a little chunky baby. She was so cute. But that nickname carried from toddlerhood and on. So of course, when you're a teenager, that becomes an insecurity. And I
Yes.
remember when she said, you guys, please stop calling me that. I really think I look that way. And I'm like, but she was so skinny. But we just kept calling her. I'm like, but that's your nickname. That's cute, because it started off as a term of endearment, but then it became an insecurity. So then she was looking at her body. This happens so much in so many families, not like just Latino culture, but in Latino culture, I always say like it's a thing that start off like that as a term of endearment. And
Yeah.
then when you tell family members, hey, please stop, they're like, oh, you're being so sensitive. We've been calling you this for years because people don't like change. It's
Right.
like, what's going on? You're changing. I don't like it. So it's really important to have these discussions in family because it's a sign of respect no matter how young the child is. And this is like a new way of thinking, because before, kids just had to suck it up. Whatever you're told you're gonna do or be, that's what you do. You
There
just
is
have to
no
accept it.
question. Hopefully, and I know the audience knows we've talked about this before, we have to be very careful about, even as parents, claiming this is the smart one, this is the challenged one, this
Yes.
is the
Yeah.
wild one, this is the
Yeah.
bad, this
You're
is the creative one. And all of a sudden, people start fulfilling the roles they've been given.
Exactly. They self-identify. Like if you're
Oh,
like, oh, this is my
horrible.
problem kid, that's always is like, oh, I'm the problem kid. Oh, this
Yeah.
is my smart one. She's really good at math. Oh, I'm really good at math. And so she's gonna try even harder because, hey, I'm good at math. And I remember my mom doing that. My mom was like,
Oh,
oh, Dali's the good kid. So I was like, oh, okay, I really need to not fail her
yeah.
because I'm the good kid and I'm also the oldest. That's another thing in Latino culture. It's like, you're the oldest, you better not F it up. Otherwise, all your siblings are looking up at you. And if you fail, then that means everybody else is gonna fail. So that's a lot of
Ah,
pressure, right? And
ah, it's truly unbelievable, and I think maybe because of my age, when we hear bullying, or when I used to hear bullying, you're thinking about the we're going to say guys because there's not a guy on this call. We're going to blame you guys that they would gang up and put somebody in a locker.
yeah,
Well,
oh,
I mean,
that's,
clearly, we all
yeah.
know that's bullying.
Hmm.
horrible. And then the next thing is you said something, we're going to go egg a house. I was just with a really dear group of friends from high school, and there were about 14 of us there. And, you're just talking about stuff, and someone said, "How is so and so doing?" I happened to be friends with them. I said, "Think they're doing great." And this girl said, "You know, she was mean to me. They literally opened up my car and egged it on the inside." I said, "There's no way she would have done that, but maybe." And I said, "I need to point out to her today because I know she's sick about doing that. She is this nice, wonderful person." So then
Mhm.
the next thing, I knew we were going to be talking today. And again, had the person involved in this alleged egging,
Yeah.
had she realized I'm being a bully,
Yeah. Hmm.
there's a very good chance, some people think, "Hey, somebody egged my house. I must,
Right.
they must be thinking about me. That's a good thing." I mean, it's such confusion. I mean,
Hmm.
I have heard people say, let's say a little girl comes in and says, "So and so's mean to me," and the parents say, "They must like you."
I hate that one so
I
much. Oh my
knew that would get you because I
Yeah,
couldn't
it's
even
like,
express it.
you know why? Because okay, first of all, when a child or anybody tells you this happened to me, and you're like, are you sure? You just totally invalidated that person.
That's
That's
right.
horrible. It's a different type of re-victimization. And then saying to, especially girls hear this a lot, is like, oh, he's hitting you because he's chasing you because he likes you. He has a crush on you. That is, first of all, teaching them to doubt what they're actually feeling. So if they feel frustrated, unsafe, that they don't like it, they're like, oh, so I'm supposed to like this? Oh, so I'm supposed to accept that type of abuse? Because so many people don't think that is abusive. But think about this. If it were you as an adult, somebody doing that to you, would it be acceptable?
That's
No.
right.
So why would you tell your child that is unacceptable, that you should be flattered? Absolutely not.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right. And I know the audience is going, "Oh my gosh, we've either said it, we've heard it, and we need to understand, and we have a series on the power of words coming up. I hope you'll come, Dolly." But the thing
Yeah.
about that is we are literally saying what's acceptable.
Hmm. And
And
teaching to self-doubt. Yeah.
yes,
Which is so dangerous because that just opens the door to so much other types of abuse, domestic abuse, financial abuse, emotional
yes,
abuse, spiritual abuse, mental abuse. And people, unfortunately, underestimate that type before physical. Because the obvious, what the eyes can see, for some reason, is more believable. And I always say to people, like, why would a child want to lie and put themselves on the spot in a negative light like that? If they're
I
coming to
know.
you, if they're coming to you, it's because it's happened in their world, even if it's something like somebody's calling them mean names, right? For most of us who are confident, we're like, whatever, let it roll off your shoulder because you know who you are. You're confident in yourself. But children don't usually have that with them unless it has been role modeled at home, and they've been practicing it, right? But imagine you as an adult going to somebody and the first thing you hear is like, are you sure? Are you sure that's what they meant? Are you sure you're not exaggerating? Are you sure you're not blowing it out of proportion? Maybe they were just having a bad mood. Like all of that, you're teaching them to accept it, let it go, when really we need to be smarter humans and say, like, when somebody, you hear this a lot, when somebody shows you who they really are, believe them and walk away from them if you don't like that type of behavior.
Oh,
So we really need to start that really, really young because right now there are young girls in their teens experiencing domestic violence before they're ready for a real relationship. And that is another form of bullying. It's extreme, but
yeah.
that's how it starts. And if we teach our children to just let it roll off and not have stand in their power, in their confidence, and not tolerate any type of stuff like that, then they're going to have a horrible experience later on allowing these things. And nobody deserves that. And unfortunately, we have to admit that at some point, parents may be the kids' first bullies.
That's right.
Yes.
We have to say
I've
it.
had, yeah, I've had so many over the last 9 years doing this work. I've had so many workshops where I describe behaviors of bullying, and there's always at least two parents that stand up and they have the courage to say, "Oh my gosh, I'm my child's bully. I didn't know that." But, I applaud them for doing that because they're recognizing it. And number two, because we parent the way that we were parented. And, our old school parenting had a lot of flaws. And right
Uh,
now, there's stuff that's better, but I'm pretty sure 20 years from now, we're gonna look back and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I used to let my kid have a smartphone at the age of, I don't know, 3, which I already think it's a terrible thing for many reasons, online dangers and all, but that's
yeah,
another
an
conversation.
entirely different conversation, but
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
Mhm. But yeah, so we really need to think about what's coming out of our mouth. How are we responding to bullying behaviors? Because my daughter, when she came to me, she was 5. A 5-year-old asked her out, and she said, "No, I'm 5. I don't need a boyfriend." I was so proud. And
Yeah.
this little boy, his 7 and 9-year-old brothers were bullying him to bully her because how dare she says no to him? You're the man. You got to show her now. So he
Oh,
started calling
oh,
her all kinds of names. And in my little baby's world, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's terrible. And to me, I was like, oh, it should go away soon. It's not that bad. But in her world, this is a huge, huge problem.
oh,
And it
it's
is not
affecting
for me,
everything going on.
yeah. And it is not for me to decide how huge this problem is because this is a child where she is exploring the world at, I mean, we're just discovering something at every age. So my reality is my reality, and I'm entitled to it because it's my reality. So as a mother, how dare I try to say it wasn't that bad? You need to get over it. So the best thing that I can do to a child that comes to me and says, this happened to me is, first of all, believe them. Again, there's no reason that children want a negative spotlight on them. And two is, you know what? You don't deserve this. I'm so sorry this happened to you. How can I help you? And do you know how alleviating that is for a child to hear?
Oh,
Oh my gosh, they believe me, thank goodness. And they're also usually afraid to even go say something because their first thought is, my parents are gonna think I provoked it.
that's right.
They're gonna think I did something wrong. And that's why this is happening to me because that's the rhetoric. Every time there's a victim for anything, it's like, well, what did you do? Just like sexual assault. Well, what were you wearing?
That's
You know,
right.
like, you got robbed. Oh, well, did you leave the keys in your car? What were you thinking? We shouldn't have to take these measures.
At
That's the whole
least
point.
start with, oh my God, that's terrible. How can I
Exactly.
support you?
Right.
Yes, I'm definitely guilty of asking
I've
the
done it too.
question when someone has taken something out of someone's car, was your car unlocked?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
guilty
because
of
we're like,
asking that question.
But that's because we live in a world where we have learned better. We're like,
Yeah.
you got to lock your car. But for the some new humans in this world still like that haven't experienced what we have. Yeah, it's like, and sometimes we do that because we care, because we're so frustrated. We're like, like what were
Yeah.
you thinking? But
Yeah.
really, like that's not what they want to hear. And the one thing that's what deters people from speaking up about any negative experience is the judgment. The other one is, will they believe me? And the other one is, um, I should be able to handle this on my own. If I don't, then I'm weak. And the
Mm,
other thing too is when bullying happens or any type of harassment and it happens in front of others, which usually does, especially bullying in schools or in youth, whether it's at a sports game, a sports event, the park, church. in the classroom, it is almost always in front of other people. And because people feel so uncomfortable, nobody speaks up. There is a
Ah,
misconception that if I speak up for my friend who's being attacked right now, I'm going to be the next target. But that belief exists because people have not been taught how to use communication effectively to where they can immediately stop the bullying behavior. And I'll tell you, Carol, when people learn how to use it properly, bullying behavior stops within 10 seconds. Because the
wow.
problem is that people attack the person instead of the issue. No matter how upset you are and you want to call them names, you don't call them names. You call them out on the issue. So if right now I'm bullying you, then I would want somebody to say, "Hey, cut it out. We don't bully here." I'm not saying cut it out, Dali, you're being a bully, because then you're attacking me. And if you attack me, I will most likely retaliate and you become my next victim. But if you're saying, hey, like, hey, we don't do that here, that's unacceptable, then you're generalizing. You're not attacking the person, you're attacking the event or the behavior. And when people do that, not only does bullying behavior stop most of the time between 10 to 15 seconds, but the person being attacked now, Carol, somebody has spoken for you. How are you going to feel? You're going to feel like, wow, somebody stood up for me. I must be worth something.
That's right.
So,
This is,
yeah,
yeah.
when I was being bullied throughout, especially elementary school, not one person ever stood up for me. And slowly I started thinking, what am I doing wrong? Why am I attracting these people? Maybe I'm a bad person. That's probably why this keeps happening because it's happening at home too. So over time, my confidence dropped. It's terrible. And this affects every aspect of your life because I skipped a grade in Nicaragua. I'm coming to the US. I'm going to do outstanding. But the US thought I was dumb because I didn't know English. So they dropped me a grade, although I excelled at everything else. And then that made me feel like something was wrong to begin with. And then experiencing some things that kids did and called me derogatory names. And through that experience, I learned what it meant. And I was like, oh, so people like me are seen like this. I'm down here and they're up there.
Oh
So
my
all of it
God.
accumulates, and then you start missing school. Some old statistics before COVID. Okay, this is really old. There was an average of 160,000 kids that were missing school every single day in the United States because they were avoiding a bully. That's a lot of kids.
160,000
100,000
children.
per day. And so if you look at this from an economic standpoint, a lot of schools get paid around $110 per child who attends school per day. That is millions and millions and millions of dollars out of the education system. If you want to think of bullying as an economic deficit, right?
Well, I
Because
think we should.
sometimes until,
I think that's what happens, whether regardless of the conversation.
yeah,
You think about, you're not thinking butterfly effect, how this is affecting every part of our lives. But let's just say that if education is the number one most important asset that is shared with the young,
right.
everybody, as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
if you're not going to school, you're not going to do well. You're not going
hmm
to be very confident. More than likely, it's going to affect what you want to do later. Now, I say all that, and we're here talking with you, and you were determined to say, oh no, this is who I am. But
Mhm.
somewhere along the line, you became confident,
Yeah, somewhere along the line. And honestly, I
driven.
think, yeah, because I was that kid who was bullied. And then, I had a missed school, not just because of bullying at school, but because of things going on at home. And then when I went back to school, I tried to catch up, and some things build on themselves, such as math. So there I was trying to catch up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I must be really dumb. How am I going to get to college? And I just couldn't catch up. So then you start thinking, I'm not smart. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I won't be going straight to college. Maybe I can do something else. But if I don't go to college, I can't get a guy who's smart like me because now I gotta find somebody who also didn't go to college. That way there's no imbalance there.
Oh my
And
gosh.
then
The
if you
rabbit holes are endless.
exactly. And then if I think I'm not good enough and I'm bad, then I'm gonna allow somebody to treat me that way because that's what I am.
Ah,
And
okay.
so you see where it goes?
Yes, that's
And
which
then
is
so
why I'm so grateful you're here. And I wish, and the audience knows this, I say this every time, there's so much more to talk about here.
Mhm,
And I know, I'm hopeful, I should say, that you will come back and we'll continue. And maybe what we'll do is break down the different types of bullying.
mhm.
But I want to go back to what I had asked of the audience before Dolly started sharing so beautifully. And that is, how in the world do we get this expert information into the schools, but into the homes? So I already have a list, of course, of places, because I've been thinking about this so much, not just because I always have all these great lists, but there are places that Dolly needs to be heard. Parents, kiddos, you know, psychologists, we all need the information so that, again, we can get back to awareness. And if we start out and we become aware, and then we are willing to explore doing things differently, sharing this information, we can help. First of all, we'll become those people that take up for others, no matter the age. But imagine if our kiddos became the kiddo that stood up for someone that was receiving that type of behavior, you know? And I love, my gosh, I love so much of this, but I'm wondering, and I think the audience probably heard this, these bullies need help.
They do.
Well, the other thing I want to suggest is for us to first look inside and where have we been bullies?
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
tough
I
one.
mean, it comes up for me immediately. I started thinking, oh gosh, I wish I wouldn't have said that. But
Mhm.
really and truly, I think that we need to become willing to learn. Back to the serenity prayer. Accept the things we cannot change, you know, change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I believe that they're addicts, and many people now have been educated that addiction is a disease. Don't attack the person.
Yeah,
Person now has a disease, and so it's about the disease. It's not about the person.
right.
When you're shouting out or speaking to a bully, you're not saying, we just don't do that here. Not you're not welcome, but the bullying is not welcome.
Exactly.
Dolly, I know the audience is grateful. I am so grateful. And I I just really I want to encourage everyone, get the book, all the ways to follow Dolly and to share her information with educators, with other families, with other parents. If you're in a parenting group, so often now people get together and discuss things that are going on, whether that be what's going on in the classrooms. Is the schoolwork too hard or not hard enough or whatever it may be? This is a conversation that needs to take place. I just cannot thank you enough. And again, everyone will have all y'all. I have to share a couple of fun things. Oh my gosh, going over time. Dolly's word for the year. Let's start with, let's go with the book for the year. We all know Confident, Bully Proof Kids. Oh, look, there it is by Dali Rivera. Oh my goodness. And her word for the year is scale. And I would love to know, we had asked her, excuse me, a couple of things that the audience really needed to do. What to do if their child is is a bully and how to effectively work with schools when bullying happens to their kids. Y'all, go to the schools, invite Dolly to speak. She can do it virtually or in person. Get the book, talk to the parents. And this is really and truly, I love this question, a challenge that Dolly has had to overcome where she is today. I think the challenge exists for many people, and that was how to understand the value of investing and having these conversations and getting into her program and reading her books. Surely, I know our audience, they invest in themselves. They love to learn. They love helping other people. Y'all, let's do this. And then this is cool. Coming up, tell them what's coming up in May.
Yes, in May. Oh my gosh.
I
I
know it,
can't
which is
remember.
around the corner.
Yes. Honestly, I can't remember right now.
I'm going to tell you because I know, because I'm so excited. She's doing weekly power hour
Oh, that's right.
workshops. No,
I'm
Dolly,
thinking
you've
like
got a
huge.
lot. You have so many things going on, and I'm
Yeah.
just so excited and kind of jumping around in our conversation because there's so much here. And y'all, when you go and you're following her and you tap in, you'll be able to tap into those things as well. Dolly, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, the Power Hour workshops will be available and anybody can take them online and they're very, very affordable. So please check them out. And if anything, talk to your PTA, your school principal, school psychologist. Those three people are the ones that usually run anything to do with bullying prevention programs. PTA and school principals
Yes,
handle providing it to the adults, to the community members, school psychologists handle it with the children. That's schools.
I'm actually just typing myself a note. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless
This
you
was wonderful.
today and all the people you're helping. Thank you, Father, for working your magic with this beautiful child of yours. Thank you, audience. Welcome.